remember it's not tobacco. It's the familiarities. I'm still kind of hooked to the whole putting the chaw. It's a bag. I never use those. I'm used to using regular like Copenhagen or Kodiak or real tobacco, to which I don't want no part of this tobacco. They've perverted everything. Trying to get my stuff together. It's early. I said I was going to read. I want to read something to you guys that might be pretty. Navi Poet. She's unloading a truck. So I was watching that. You know, I like to pay attention to everybody. Okay. I actually bought a new tripod and a new one of those octopus, you know, things. So I'm just trying to get everything right here. Yeah, I usually set everything up beforehand, but oh well, this is where I'm at. You know, it's funny when people want you to watch their stuff and look at all their information. No, I'm not doing that no more. I can't support people with their little, I don't care about the things they're sharing. You guys, I watch on, if you got a YouTube channel, I'm on everybody's page. I give a thumbs up. Even if I don't watch the whole thing, I'm watching everything. All right, what I got? I have this thing on my tablet that I put in to cancel out reverb. And I just wanted to see how it worked with my wireless headphone. So, yeah, they are less a mess. Definitely. Yeah, I'm just using that. It's still that mountain. There's only two different kinds. Now, there's another one. It has nicotine, very low. I don't mind a little nicotine because it's in a lot of chocolate, and nicotine is in a lot of things that are very minute. Is it naturally occurring? I don't know. I didn't study, but it's in a lot of places. I know the lighting's a little off, and I'm upstairs. I didn't feel like being downstairs. Up here, my Eagle Smart and I'm looking at it right now. My counter, it's like 48. Downstairs, it's like 72, 75. Why is it so strong down there? Because the repeaters, the signal that picks up the repeater radiation that draws it closer is at ground level. So therefore, it makes sense. Me and my buddy who's ex-Marine, who used to work on one of the things with the Army guys, intelligence, and he all who's ex-Army and Marines, you know what I'm talking about, right? They used to work together. They used to get banged with that stuff, and they didn't know it. A lot of them got prostate cancer, And it's radiation, y'all. These towers, all this 5G ground is that much stronger. The fifth generation ground level, no satellite, of an expansion on it, pushing more radiation. It doesn't change. We can go back to 1G and everything works fine. It's all it's all UHF and VHF. It all is. They just want you to, they don't want you to be able to listen to certain things, so this is a misdirect. It is what it is. I just wanted to share that. Also, I'm gonna come clear because I did this with intention yesterday. Yesterday, somebody called me. And it seems like every time I go live, they call. So that means that they're chiming in. I love that. The only issue I have is don't do it while I'm live. Now, this person in the communicate, because there's other forces out there when you've been derelict all your life and now you attempt to search something new, which is a beautiful thing. But when you're communicating, if you're going to relinquish something like, well, you know, I'm not big on people doing lives, I don't think it was targeted at me. I think it was a misrepresentation of self-gaslighting. To be able to be cordial and communicate, but to deliver it on things that have nothing to do with reason. Because I don't give a flying hoot about what you like and what you don't like. That's for people I know from back in the day to people I know now. I don't have any feelings caught up in the database, your database of whatever it is. This is a tool. If you don't know how to use this tool, and you've been running around chasing things to hold on to a youth because you missed yours, or you made it bad decisions, and you probably continue to, I decide to lie when I call this person back and says, oh, well, I wasn't a lie. I actually put in my new TV. The other one worked. I just didn't like the way it looked. And my boy's gonna fix it. When he gets home today, he's gonna take it. He's gonna fix it. I'll just put it in the shed or something. I don't know. And for free. And I'm not gonna apologize. I can't do it. I just don't know how to lie though. So I have to say this. And if I do it with you, you'll know it, because you'll know if you lied or not. And I expressed that, oh, I didn't answer because of this, because if the person's watching, they would know it. You see what I'm saying? And so I said, right before I called him, I says, I'm gonna try something. And I says, yeah, I was doing this. And you know, I was on live, but at the same time, I inserted that, but dismissed it at the same time to see if that person was paying attention. And because if your diatribe is steeped or based on being the center of focus and attention in a false narrative, I don't have attention there. My thing is, if you're oblivious to the other parties or the other concerns, then why should somebody be attendant to what you're stating? So I told that little blatant, I guess, white lie, because I wanted to see if there was a moral subjugation, a rational conviction, and I wanted to see what might come out of it, whether something does or doesn't. I implicate myself in things because I have to walk on a different path. I have to see. I just can't lie, people. I just can't do it. I made it my business that if you ask me a question and if the response is going to bother you, then you need to level up. Now, if I don't respond, it means you're not worthy of the response. I mean, that's not saying you're not a worthy individual. It means you're not capable of dealing with the details, and it's finite. Everybody wants to be intelligent and intellectual, and most people haven't tapped into their intelligence, and they're not really that intellectual. Oh man, the light sucks, right? I should have a light right here. I got one of them things. I'm not into all that. I can put right here, the little O-ring thing. Should I get it out? This one's jumping all over everything. What did I do? Oh, it's right there. Anyway, I probably shouldn't get it out. Now, I could lower that blind and it would change it, because that's a lot of light in the background that blinds this out. So I could lower it, right? I like the sunlight in it. You know what I mean? Let's turn this down. I've been talking about it. It's a bigger TV. I think I would have been better off with this a 30-inch, man. I don't know this big stuff, man. I guess maybe that's part of me I have to change too. I don't know. I feel like I'm in a damn drive-in movie theater or something. What the fuck? Yes. So I got my AM meditation on, and I wanted to read all of the introduction to this Not Out of Africa. How Afrocentrism became an excuse to teach myth as history by Mary Lefkowitz. Now, I've only reads to this. So you can see it's just jumping around sporadically. I cannot really give you a foray, but a friend of mine who read it says you might want to read this, James. So I'm going to read it right along with y'all. Now, this is a revised edition with an epilogue responding to the author's critiques. Okay, if truth mattered in this controversy, this book would end the debate. George F. Will of Newsweek. The definitive statement Miss Lefkowitz's book raises the disturbing possibility that we are attending a dialogue of the deaf. New York Times book review. We all know about these sources of critiques. We know they're like Siskel and Ebert. They're unworthy. It's another part of drama. You might as well go pick up the Star and Esquire and all that nonsense. Not Out of Africa has sparked widespread debate over the teaching of revisionist history in schools and colleges. Was Socrates black? Did Aristotle steal his ideas from the library in Alexandria? Do we owe the underlying tenets of our democratic civilization to the Africans? Mary Lefkowitz explains why politically motivated histories of the ancient world are being written and shows how Afrocentrism claims blatantly contradict the historic evidence. Not Out of Africa is an important book that protects and argues for the necessity of historical truths and standards in cultural education. For this new paperback edition, Mary Lefkowitz has written an epilogue in which she responds to her critiques and offers topics for further discussion. She has also added supplementary notes, a bibliography with suggestions for further reading, and a glossary of names. So it has references, sources, and resources for information to further research. The Washington Post, a lightning rod for racial conspiracy theorists, anti-Semites, black nationalists, and academic leftists. Scholarly detective work. Washington Post. Well, here we see they're using 3 fundamentally unfounded, unsound narratives to push against the truth based on a subjugation by occultists who don't care about no one, and something that keeps you dead, like as if a black nationalist is a nationality or a living thing. Okay? And academia, as if to teach means to actually learn something other than to be a slave to another narrative. And we know what theories are subjugated to when it's based upon a conspiracy. Is one relevant to the other? I would question. Now, Harvard University, and I believe I read this before in another book, in historical study, there is no such thing as the last word. But this book is the best word so far in the debate about Egypt's influence on classical Greek philosophy. It is also a rattling good yarn. You know what that means, right? As if have a gander over here, this is pretty funny or a stretch. This book will not end the debate on these questions, but it will radically improve its quality. We are the ones who are ending it. I'm going to close that and see if the light changes, because I look like a damn Oreo cookie with chocolate chips, and like I just bought some of them damn Girl Scout cookies that are out. And he'll want to play with that. No, that won't do no good. I don't feel like sitting there. Get off my foot, man. Sheesh. You want to touch my damn foot all the time. I know that's a kitty thing. And he's over a year now. Okay. Let's go on. Continue on. I hope you find this interesting. I hope the background music is well enough, which we really don't need. Anywho. Anyway. A yarn. This book will not end the debate on these questions, but it will radically improve its quality. K. Anthony Appiah, Harvard University. As I stated already, we are the ones that are going to change it because they ignore everything out there. Now, here we got the University of California, a brilliant, incisive, and eruditive critique of the hustle that is Afrocentrism. Clarence E. Walker Davis, and you know who he is. You know why I'm doing all the over fried chicken. Anyway, here we go with New York University. liberals. Mary Lefkowitz's courageous book reminds us that history must be based on evidence, openly arrived at and openly argued, not myth, ideology, or opinion. She further reminds us that if scholars abandon the canons of scholarship, then the university itself is in peril. Now, we know that we have one truth, that's another truth, that's another truth, that's another truth, that's based on a lie. So if you go back 5 different consortiums from a lie and you create four more sources that you speak truth. Are any of them steeped in truth? No, they're all lies. Okay? Let's be clear on that. So anyway, she further reminds us that if scholars abandon the canons of scholarship, then the university itself is in peril. Diane Ravitch, New York University. You know who that is. The Village Voice. You're carried along not only by the quality of her argument, but by the scholarly excitement of the hunt. Most of it sure sounds conclusive to me. Now, it says not out of Africa. Now, I'm just utilizing this book because of Afrocentrism. The Negroes behind it, the people in certain places. You see what I put up there, right? That dude, I don't care about his persuasion. I don't want to know nothing about the mother. You might want to do research and find out who he is. But I know one thing, wearing garters with a panty looking like that, that's some sick shit. My opinion. And I saw somebody sent that to me, talking about, one of the Hebrew brothers, talking about, what do you think of this? And I was like, what? Man, you got me confused. Anyway, let's go ahead and let me spit this shit out and let's get into this reading. Yeah, I can't do this. I can't do it a lot. Okay, let's get into the introduction of this. In American universities today, not everyone knows what extreme Afrocentrists are doing in their classrooms, or even if they do know, they choose not to ask questions. For many years, I had been as unwilling to get involved as anyone else. But then, when I learned what was going on in this special line of teaching, my questions about ancient history were not encouraged. There was no sense that as a faculty, we were all involved in a cooperative enterprise, that of educating all of our students, intellectual debate was in fact actively discouraged. Even though the questions raised were reasonable and fair, ordinarily, if someone has a theory that involves a radical departure from what the experts have professed, he or she is expected to defend his or her position by providing evidence in its support. But no one seemed to think it was appropriate. Now, in lieu of why I made a statement about, I'm going to take that post down. I think it's disgusting. I want to see what y'all's narrative and how you felt about that. That is based upon Morehouse and all those colleges. That is the result of Greek and all those other things, fraternities. That is the result of Blacktivity, Afrocentrism, and the okay by a government who has no say-so in anyone's life because the government has gotten way too big and become tyrannical. But nobody wants to hear or nor see that. And that is the reason why we see this. I wish it was back in the 50s and this coming up to the 60s where women were very, I don't like the word branded, but gilded to be more responsible. And the men, in no way, shape, fashion, or form, carried themselves as they do today. The education system is the spoiler alert, y'all. It is the end of anything credible, and it brings forth all naivety and ignorance. It is deplorable, but accepted on a level that is far from gratuitous. It is a perversion, all right? And a sequence of other perversions. And that's based upon my opinion as well. Ask for evidence from the instructors who claim that the Greeks stole their philosophy from Egypt. Well, didn't we all learn that? And not still, but were educated by them? Anywho, normally, if one has a question about a text that another instructor is using, and it's funny how it always goes back to Greek and Egypt, when that's no truth in it, for those of us who are in the knowing now. Anyway, normally, if one has a question about a text that another instructor is using, one simply asks why he or she is using that book. But since this conventional line of inquiry was closed to me, I had to wait until I could raise my question in a more public context. That opportunity came in February 1993, when Dr. Joseph A. Ben Jochanan was invited to give Wellesley's Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Lecture. Posters described Dr. Ben Jochanan as a distinguished Egyptologist, and indeed that is how he was introduced by the then president of Wesley College. But I knew from my research in Afrocentric literature, that he was not what scholars would ordinarily describe as an Egyptologist. That is, a scholar of Egyptian language and civilization. Pay attention. Rather, he was an extreme Afrocentrist. Author of many books described how Greek civilization was stolen from Africa, how Aristotle robbed the Library of Alexandria, and how the true Jews are Africans like himself. After Dr. Ben Jochanan made these same assertions once again in his lecture, I'm only reading this because of this book right here. Okay? Rather, he was an extreme. Anyway, after Dr. Ben, we know him as, made these same assertions once again in his lecture, I asked him during the question period why he said that Aristotle had come to Egypt with Alexander and had stolen his philosophy from the Library of Alexandria, when that library had only been built after his death. Dr. Ben was unable to answer the question and said that he resented the tone of the inquiry. Several students came up to me after the lecture and accused me of racism, suggesting that I had been brainwashed by white historians. But others stayed to hear me out, and I assured Dr. Ben that I simply wanted to know what his evidence was. So far as I knew, and I had studied the subject, Aristotle never went to Egypt. And while the date of the Library of Alexandria is not known precisely because it's all false history, I ascertained that based upon my studies and travels. It was certainly built some years after the city was founded, which was after both Aristotle's and Alexander's death. A lecture at which serious questions could not be asked, and in fact were greeted with hostility. The occasion seemed more like a political rally than an academic event. As if that were not disturbing enough in itself, there were also the strained silence on the part of many of my faculty colleagues. Several of them were well aware that what Dr. Ben was saying was factually wrong. One of them said later that she found the lecture so hopeless that she decided to say nothing. Were they afraid of being called racist? If so, their behavior was understandable, but not entirely responsible. Didn't we as educators owe it to our students, all our students, to see that they got the best education they could possibly get? And that clearly was what they were not getting in a lecture where they were being told myths disguised as history, and where discussions and analysis had apparently been forbidden. Now, Dr. J, I don't believe everything Dr. Ben, was a complete liar. I believe that what he saw in his time, because you got to remember when he was born, guys, there was still anger and rage. And anything to subjugate against the narrative, because like I said, if I tell a truth that's based upon a truth that's based upon a truth that's based upon a truth for generations that actually speak in a lie, are these truths. So what is the argument here? Let's further carry on. A lecture at which serious questions could not be asked and in fact were greeted with hostility. The occasion seemed more like a political rally than an academic event. As if that were not disturbing enough in itself, there was also the strange silence on the part of many of my faculty. I had to read this again. Colleagues, several of them were well aware that what Dr. Ben Jochanan was saying was factually wrong. I had to put that out. All right. Anyway, and near the end, and where discussions and analysis had apparently been forbidden. Good as the myths they were hearing may have made these students feel, so long as they never feel, keyword, they never left the Afrocentric environment in which they were being nurtured. I say raised, torn down, and built up in a lie, and sheltered, protected in that lie. They were being systematically deprived of the most important features. Isn't that what movies do, Hollywood and all other stuff? Anyway, most important features of a university education. They were not learning how to question themselves and others. They were not learning to distinguish facts from fiction. Nor, in fact, were they learning how to think for themselves. Their instructors had forgotten, while the rest of us sat by and did nothing about it, that students do not come to universities to be indoctrinated. Yet, isn't that what John Rockefeller and the CIA had wanted done? To indoctrinate, to get rid of the old world, and in order to establish a new world order, which goes back to the 1700s. Long and work, people, how we forget so easily. Indoctrination is what is required. In order to do that, what must you do? What must you do? It's not just the education system. You must have wars. You must change the diet. You must make sure that the person is livid, not functioning at their highest ability, because memory needs to be stricken of the past. It must be removed. So you have to indoctrinate, and it must start in youth. That's why you have all these people, these Pan-Africans, all these other made-up terms, running around like the fools they are, oscillating and ostracizing others, and carrying on in ways that are just feeble for those of us who know outside the paradigm of this malarkey that we're dealing with. At least not in a free society, as Arthur Schlesinger says in the Disuniting in America. And we see that today with these fake politicians and fake government. The purpose of history is to promote not group self-esteem, but understanding of the world and the past. This passionate analysis, judgment, and perspective, respect for divergent cultures, what does divergent mean, and traditions, and unflinching protection for those unifying ideas of tolerance, democracy, and the human rights to make free historical inquiry possible. By hearing three words in there, do you not hear indoctrination when we hear tolerance, which is a misnomer, democracy? Why would we have to tolerate anything that foregoes the reality of truth? Democracy, this is not a democracy. The term itself, if you look it up, as I have read it as it states, has nothing to do with freedoms, but diplomacy that is deplorable and subjugates. Isn't that indoctrination? And human rights. Why do we have to have human rights like civil rights? Whatever happened to the liberties that are based upon natural order, just as to choose to live civil or wild and free are not a context of truth. So it seemed to me that being called a racist was not my principal problem. False and unpleasant as the charges were, such attacks could easily be repelled as long as my colleagues were prepared to reconstruct what happened in the past on the basis of historical evidence. The trouble was that some of my colleagues seemed to doubt that there was such a thing as historical evidence, or that even if evidence existed, it did not matter much one way or the other. Is that an easier way to dismiss or to be relevant in dismissal? To find a way to cowardly bow out? It seems kind of unprecedented, doesn't it? Okay. Even if evidence existed, it did not matter much one way or the other, at least in comparison with what they judged to be the pressing cultural issues and social goals of our own time. What's the social goals? Why is social studies required? What picture are we still holding on to or painting? Who is being fulfilled and satisfied here on our soil? When I went to the then dean of the college to explain that there was no factual evidence behind some Afrocentric claims about ancient history, she replied that each of us had a different but equally valid view of history. And when I stated at a faculty meeting that Aristotle could not have stolen his philosophy from the Library of Alexandria in Egypt because that library had not been built until after his death, another colleague responded, "I don't care who stole what from whom." How could I persuade these colleagues and many others like them that evidence does matter and that not every interpretation of the past is equally probable, and that I was not trying to teach about the history of the ancient world in order to preserve or transmit racist values. You look at what we do, what I used to do compared to what many of our people are still subjugating themselves to. We're Indian, we're Indian, we're Indian. That has changed the tide in many scholars' eyes, because a lot of them have been subjugated to the same indoctrination and forced repression of history, true history. And here we are alligating ourselves in a new allegory to ratify and remedy the situation based on the fact that real history exists. Yet they are a certain class. Does it mean that they always see all of our works, hear all of our tandem and random bickering and disputes? Or will they rally themselves behind their false narrative to subjugate themselves further in their false diplomacies of their colonial indoctrination, as we have removed ourselves from it? Teach about the history of the ancient world. Anyway, and I was not trying to teach, I'm going to finish off here, teach about the history of the ancient world in order to preserve or transmit racist values. The present book is an attempt to answer these difficult questions, and they should be difficult, especially in those circles, at least so far as the understanding of ancient history is concerned. There is an urgent need for a book that discusses the nature of the charges against the Greeks and provides a complete discussion of the reasons why they are without foundation. Hardly a week goes by when an article does not appear by an Afrocentric writer observing that the discoveries attributed to the Greeks rightly belong to the ancient Egyptians. But while many of us have responded to various individual assertions about the Greeks, no one so far has taken the trouble to respond fully to all of them and to explain why it is that these ideas are now being circulated, because we're shaking the fucking foundations and breaking the pot, and all the bull is spilling out the crevices. I can understand this reluctance on the part of classicists, pay attention, and Egyptologists. The two actually go together. To respond to the kinds of allegations that are now being made requires us, in effect, to start from the beginning, to explain the nature of the ancient evidence, and to discuss what has long been known and established, and as if it were now subject to serious question. In short, we are being put on the defensive when in ordinary circumstances there would have been nothing to be defensive about. It would have been an open, simple conversation. Worst of all, making this sort of defense keeps us from going on to discover new material and bring our attention to bear on real interpretive problems. Interpretative problems. Instead of getting on with our work, we must rehearse what has long been known. But nonetheless, the case for the defense must still be made. Afrocentrist writers have suggested many ways to revise the teaching of European history and science, but in this book, I have chosen to concentrate on the way modern writers have misrepresented the achievement of the ancient Greeks. Throughout European history, many different groups have claimed affinity with the ancient Greeks because they have admired particular aspects of their civilizations. Why? Because of indoctrination, people. And whether intellectual, military, or athletic, but Afrocentrists are not content with establishing a special relationship to the ancient Greeks. Instead, they seek to remove the ancient Greeks from the important role they have previously played in history. Now, I can only usurp one reason for that, because in layman's term, the Greeks are not old. They're not ancient. Greeks from the important role they have previously played in history, and to assign to the African civilization of Egypt the credit for the Greeks' achievements. Where is Greece, people? Where is Greece, people? I want y'all to look at a map, and we know that a lot of these maps are real. I will once again post a map that is authentic. Oh, it is. Oh, there's hundreds of them, and they UN and all them, and they have it up on the wall. But they will not subjugate you to that reality because indoctrination has been more important to keep you involved in the myth. Now you are starting to ascertain why I read Red Flatlanders, why I read Nos Confoundum, why I read The Custodian, why I'm reading The Heaven Bearers, and why I will be reading in numerous other books and the other books that I have read. Not to plagiarize, but to subjugate one's mind to open up to the broadened horizons of the information that lays within you. It is not just a feeling, it is there. This is Leftowitz. She would argue that she's a Jew. Any attempt to question the authenticity of ancient Greek civilization is of direct concern even to people who ordinarily have little interest in the remote past. When I was reading the book the other day and I pointed out certain things that coincide with 300, didn't it lay over in these lands? Is that myth made up by the pale skin who wrote it? Or misinterpretation for interpolation? I want you guys to know these things. Since the founding of this country, ancient Greece has been intimately connected with the ideas of American democracy. Rightly or wrongly, you see how she inserted that, rightly or wrongly, since much of the credit belongs to the Romans, we like to think that we have carried on some of the Greeks' proudest traditions: democratic government and freedom of speech, learning and discussion. Learning what? What freedom of speech? What's the narrative painted? So I am reading this book because it's important. Remember that. Chew the fruit, spit out the seeds. But it is from the Greeks and not from any other ancient societies that we derive our interest in history. No, it is somebody's narrative put forth by John D. Rockefeller. Before the 1900s, before the school system was equipped as a weapon, this is pure fabrication and lie. History and our belief that events in the past have relevance for the present. You know how it is when you look up a word in ancient Greek, and then when you start looking up in Latin or Aramaic, then you go, okay, but then I say to y'all, how many of y'all look into the land of Ur and Sumer and all those others? How about times immortal or immoral? Which one is it? Immoral or immortal? Immortal means forever lasting, which we are so-called far disconnected from, and immoral because what's the subjugation? So in spite of what my colleagues said, it does matter to all of us whether or not Aristotle stole his philosophy from Egypt, even though that event, in parentheses it states, or rather non-event, and supposedly took place as long ago as the late 4th century BC. It matters because if Aristotle had done such a thing, we should give the ancient Egyptians, rather than the ancient Greeks, credit for the development of conceptual vocabulary and formal arguments. Yet Aristotle also talked about Atlanta, and he talked about where and what direction had nothing to do with over there where Prussia and all them layman lands live, or the people live. Pay attention. She is running herself into a quandary. And I would love for these individuals to sit down and have one of these intellectual fur moments of historical relevance to their existence when they have a hard time and they don't pay attention to the truth of history because it's not part of their indoctrination. Anyway, formal arguments, vocabulary and formal arguments. It matters because extreme Afrocentrists accuse historians of antiquity like myself of being party to a major cover-up in behalf of the ancient Greeks. Instead, I will try to show that no such cover-up operation has ever existed. She messed up right there. Afrocentrism is not, I'm glad that she's attacking Afrocentrism, yet there are things that are very deplorable here. It's not simply an alternative interpretation of history. Listen again, Afrocentrism is not simply an alternative interpretation of history offered on the basis of complex data or ambiguities in the evidence. There is simply no reason to deprive the Greeks of the credit for their own achievements. And when I wrote about Thermopylae, which we stated has another name, when they fought the Khazars, remember? With the Mohammedans and the so-called Christians, right? Were fighting the Persians and the Gates, the hoplites, whatever they term, who are actually the Greeks they're interpreting. She's behind one of the names of them. It's made up. All right, let me go on. She wants to hold on to something that is relevant but irrelevant. Anyway, deprive the Greeks of the credit for their own achievements. The basic facts are clear enough, at least to dispassionate observers. In effect, Afrocentrists are demanding that ordinary historical methodology be discarded in favor of a system of their own choosing. This system allows them to ignore chronology and facts, if they are inconvenient for their purposes. In other words, the historical methodology allows them to alter the course of history to meet their own specific needs. Isn't that what the fake Jews did? Not all of them willingly. You must understand that when you convert and you have everybody convert with you and you teach your children those conversions, those in the top or echelon, it doesn't matter. They look at how they can use it. But those subjugated underneath, if I am raised, if I believe this truth is from this truth, from this truth, steeped on a lie, I'm going to believe it all be a truth because I know nothing of the lie. Instead, I will try to show that no such cover-up operation has ever existed. Afrocentrism is not simply an alternative interpretation of history offered on the basis of complex data or ambiguities in the evidence. There is simply no reason to deprive the Greeks of the credit of their own achievements. The basic facts are clear enough, at least to dispassionate observers. In effect, Afrocentrists are demanding that ordinary historical, I got to read it again, methodology be discarded in favor of a system of their own choosing. This system allows them to ignore chronology and facts if they are inconvenient for their purposes. In other words, don't we see that now? In other words, their historical methodology allows them to alter the course of history to meet their own specific needs. In asserting, that important aspects of Greek civilization were derived from Egypt, modern Afrocentric writers are, however, following a long-established pattern. Some 2,000 years ago, Jews in Alexandria insisted that the Greeks had been inspired by their own earlier civilizations. Plato, they said, had studied the works of Moses. The claim at the time that they made it did not sound as incredible as it does today. Their notion of chronology was vague, and their knowledge of Greek philosophy limited, but modern Afrocentric writers have no such excuse. Let me read that again. Modern Afrocentric writers are, however, following a long-established pattern. Some 2,000 years ago, Jews in Alexandria insisted that the Greeks had been inspired by their own earlier civilization. Now, Plato, they said, had studied the works of Moses. The claim at the time that they made it did not sound as incredible as it does today. Their notion of chronology was vague, and their knowledge of Greek philosophy limited. But modern Afrocentric writers have no such excuse. So she dismissed them in a tirade of pure bullshit, that history. Although it is understandable, excuse my language, understandable that Afrocentrists, as certain Europeans have done before them, should want to take credit for the ancient Greek origin of Western civilizations. The basic outlines of chronology in the Mediterranean are well known, and all the texts under discussion are readily available. No, they're not, because nobody knows about Tartary. She has not once mentioned it. I wonder why. Translation in all university libraries. That was the carry-on from available in translation in all university libraries. We know that university and libraries are full of, you dig what I'm saying? There is no reason why claims of a conspiracy should be credited if no real evidence can be produced to support it. Despite allegations to the contrary, virtually all the claims made by Afrocentrists can be shown to be without substance. Anyone who is willing to look into the matter can see that it is utterly absurd to state, and in parentheses it states, as some Afrocentrists have done, and that Aristotle's treatise on the soul was derived from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. In fact, all that the two texts have in common is that they mention souls, but that is true of a great many other ancient documents. And let me make a statement here because I see some of you getting a little wayward. The reason why we have been lied to about Egypt, because we want to keep holding on to the Anunnakis and the custodians. We want to hold on to them as our forebears when we were capitulated and enslaved by them, mitigated and changed. And souls, because that was the hardest thing for them to be able to corrupt or change. Now, the physical can be corrupted. The soul itself will find a way out, even if it's in your death, by use of a soul connect to another individual that will remove you dynamically, knowing that it will be removed, unbeknownst to your actions. I listen to people argue all the time, and they really believe that they're aware of their argument. They, in a lieu, are not, because the soul is done. It is dead to them. Do you dig what I'm saying? The soul is dead to the physical because they have not fed nor nurtured it. So therefore, it wants to escape if it cannot evade or avoid what is coming. And most people don't get that because the interpretation or interpolation that we have is subjugated by what? Indoctrination. In this book, I will show why these and many other claims about Greece's debt to Egypt are false. I will suggest that arguing that Afrocentric writers offer a valid interpretation of ancient history is like being comfortable. And if you believe Afrocentrics aren't misrepresenting Egypt and the lies and everything, they got y'all running around with ankhs tattooed on your bodies and sticks and shit. That was a party of control over us, subjugated to remind us that's the visceral, the visual. I know it's hard for you to accept that because you're so deeply indoctrinated. She is in lieu sharing some poignant points in her opinions. That her database, remember now, this is only the introduction, so be mindful. And remember what I always say, breathe, just listen. Don't act as if you know what I'm reading. Afrocentric writers offer a valid interpretation of ancient history. Valid. It's like being comfortable with the notion that the earth is flat. Do you see what she did? Are you paying attention? She's claiming the earth to be a spinning ball. So what does that indecorum allow you to know? To keep you stuck in a fervent rhetoric. So she wants to, remember I said books will talk about some truths and a whole lot of lies. You must know how to be able to discern, not to capitulate. You don't have to believe the earth is flat, but if you don't know math and what height and how far you're looking and look at the plane that you're looking at, and if you're 30,000, 40,000 feet up in the sky and you don't know the dynamics, that what you're looking at is over 150 miles, that you see a flat plane, and if you are unaware because there's nobody on the speaker going, now what are you seeing outside, by looking at the prisms and the shapes and what your eyes are viewing to the farthest of what is sea level, all right? And they don't tell you that's 150 miles over there. We're coming to the border of Iran. You will look and you will think that, oh, that ain't that far. But you're looking at mountains and peaks that many people are frozen on those mountains and dead because they couldn't traverse the 40 miles. They had to fly in and then traverse another 40 miles to get to that little small point when you see all this vast land and ocean down here and you see all that vast land back there and you're just looking at about 200 miles right there and it's straight as that. So be mindful, because nobody's telling you while you're in the process, because you're deeply indoctrinated. So here it is. Be mindful when you read, because you can read right by that and it's in your bread. It's subliminal. It's in your brain. It's like bread in your stomach. It is subliminal. And it will hold you in contempt or contemplation about what the shape of the earth could or could not be. Anyway, well, I tell you, Anyway, but although such new and daring hypotheses about the past can easily win adherents, especially when they favor present cultural and political aspirations, everyone should be aware that there are real dangers. She asserted her opinion, which she should not be doing if this is scholarly work. Real dangers in allowing history to be rewritten, even for culturally useful purposes. Even though it may inspire students with pride and self-confidence, writers and teaching such ethnic histories, each with its own brand of ethnic truth, sanctions the invention of falsehoods. Your name is Leftowitz, so she's doing the same thing. What will happen some years from now when students who have studied different versions of the past discover that their picture of events is totally incomparable with what their classmates have learned about their own ethnic histories? Oh, they'll be slaves. Anyway, will students of one ethnicity deny the existence of other ethnic truths with dire consequences akin to the ethnic conflicts in the former Yugoslavia? Perhaps they will be assured that the difference do not matter because all history is a form of rhetoric, and narratives of the past can be constructed virtually at will, which they are. When that time comes, and I hope it never will, our students will be no better off than the Jews who claim that Plato was a disciple of Moses. They will have no respect for evidence, nor concern with chronology, no understanding of the differences between languages and cultures. In other words, they will have overlooked everything that has been learned about history since Herodotus in the 5th century BC began his famous inquiry into the human past. It is in the hope of helping to prevent such retrogression that I have written this book. Since Afrocentrist assertions do not amount to a systematic revision of the history of ancient Greece, but rather focus on a small range of particular issues, it is possible to approach these issues as a series of interrelated questions. The second chapter, she keeps the vision going pretty good, well, right? Chapter deals with questions of race. Is there any evidence that Egyptians invaded Greece during the second millennium BC? 2000 BC, evidence that might provide some sort for the allegations that there was an African component in Greek civilization. I shall also address two particular questions about African ancestry. Was Socrates black? Was Cleopatra black? I shall show that there is no evidence for thinking so. I shall discuss the ancient perception of ethnicity and race to make her. Anyway, here, once again, we can learn from the ancients to them. Culture was a far more important factor in human behavior than skin color or other racial characteristics, which is true. But her denial of something very simple should allude to many things. The third chapter of the book turns to the broader and more complicated issue of whether Greek philosophy was stolen or in any way depended upon Egyptian thought. I believe that she has lost her mind, but she believes the notion of an extensive Greek debt to Egypt originated in the mythology of 18th century Freemasonry, which she is actually partaking in herself. Read up on her. And that for that reason, the Afrocentric claims about an Egyptian legacy are based on an honest misunderstanding. I shall show that although some ancient writers were told by Egyptian priests that the famous Greek philosophers studied in Egypt, these stories are more accurately understood as myths of cultural dependency. Wasn't the earth all one world? She lacks responsibility. She argues based upon the scholarly work of the Masonic order that needed to avert the truth of history to create narratives for dissension. But we need to read this, okay? In the fourth chapter, I explain why certain Afrocentrist writers have come to believe that there was in ancient times an Egyptian mystery system. I will argue that in reality, this system was an invention of an 18th century French writer. Exactly, it was. Oh, here it is, the Jean Tarasson. The mysteries he described were in character Greco-Roman. In other words, when Afrocentrists accused the Greeks of stealing from the Egyptians, that's why I get tired of some of you goofy niggas talking about, and I've been to Edinburgh, Scotland, and talked to some ancient ones. in the 80s who told me it was all pure bullshit. It was to hide many things. Controlled from an outside force, though. Egyptian ideas that they are describing are not actually Egyptian, but rather Egyptian as imagined by Europeans who had no direct or authentic knowledge about Egypt. So why would she state anything about, because, well, no, I'll get to that point later. Anyway, to say that the Greeks stole their philosophy from Egypt is tantamount to saying that they stole their philosophy from themselves. The 5th chapter deals with the origins of the myth that the Greeks stole their philosophy from Egypt. I suggest that the idea of a stolen legacy was first popularized by Marcus Garvey in the 1920s, who worked with who? Not just John D. Rockefeller, but Walter Plecker, but who? Who? Stolen legacy was first popularized by Marcus Garvey in the 1920s, and I describe how it was developed into a full-fledged theory in 1954 by a college teacher in Arkansas, George G. M. James. I also examine the evidence James provides in support of his theses and show in general and in particular that it does not hold up to serious scrutiny. In the conclusion, I consider what, and it states in parentheses, if anything, and can be done to contradict the calumnies that, yes, the calumnies that are being spread about the ancient Greeks and about all of us who study the ancient world. I discuss the issue of responsible teaching and of academic freedom. I suggest some people courses of action, that action of academic freedom. I suggest some people's courses of action that schools and universities might adopt. I believe it is essential for all of us to realize that some action needs to be taken. It is not simply a matter of doing justice to the ancient Greeks and their modern descendants. Universities must encourage free inquiry and debate, and not permit the classroom to be used as a means of political indoctrination. And that I agree with. Even more important than that is our obligation to teach history, and history that can be supported by warranted evidence. And then in 2, we'll get into the myths of African origins. I hope you enjoyed that, guys. Let me see what some of y'all said. I'm not gonna. I can't see none here. It's different up here. I don't know why. Like I said, the signal, the UHF signal is stronger down there. So anyway, grand elevations, everybody. What the hell happened here? Oh, I see. Okay, that's why. Awesome. Okay, do that. Okay, here we go. All right. I can see everybody. Cool. All right. Max V Production. Earl Smith. Rand already cracked that shit. What's going on? Mama Red. Lloyd. What's going on? North Africa. Y'all know how I feel about the word Africa, right? Based upon relevant to historical truths. It's a new word. Greek seems inserted. It very much so. Exactly. It's in Africa too. And that's the funny thing about it. But look at the map, the real map. Hey, what's going on, Carl? What's going on, Phil? I ain't seen you in a minute. Earl Smith, what's happening? Hey, Rip, what's going on, baby girl? Yeah, there's so much, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so much. It's tedious work, but work that needs to be done. Make sure that when we speak of certain things or we're asked questions, we can be relevant. It's best to say, I don't believe in that, though I will further look into it. Well, they're teaching me that in school. I don't believe into it because of the period of time that I've lived. We already debunked it. Yet I will look into what information may have come across. This is how you'll be able to communicate for higher learning. Okay? And to be able to nurture the person when you get to a point where it says, we don't need to worry about none of that. Just make it through the school. And I'm going to teach you what you need to know right here. They're young. Their brains are sponges. We missed out on a lot of stuff because our parents become cooperators with the enemies. Instead of them allowing us to learn the bullshit, to nurture us more in love, than do as I say because of their pains and suffering. The people on the other side knew exactly what they were doing. We must know different. She hates herself deep down inside. Of course she does, but she's conflicted too. You see what I'm saying? And that's why it's no hate. None. Talking about a kind altering history. Yeah. She exactly what she's doing. Without knowledge. Oh, you don't have to say STFU. She don't need to be quiet. We need to hear them see this, so that way we can grow in numbers and say the most positive things, hon. That way, as we forego and we approach upon different things, consortiums of literacy or literary or write other things and add to the matrix based on information that's here that she has eluded, or it's been she eluded her, or she just chooses not to partake in because of her indoctrination to another field. She's a teacher, right? You know how that comes. That comes with a lot of ego. And sometimes it's hard to not subjugate yourself to that ego. You dig what I'm saying? So she doesn't need to, but she needs to speak. She needs to share all that crap. If you fall down there, man, it's gonna be on your ass. You know your back lazy and all that strong. I'm about to text. I bet her book is read in colleges. It probably is. It may be. I think it's a good read. Everything that's wrong or right is an excellent read. That way you can inform people, especially if you know how to read it. And if you have a little knowledge that you can push forward that is based upon a different time, are you irrelevant somewhere else as far as the history knowledge? So you can sit there and, when I said 2 millennia BC, I was like 2,000 years BC. Here we go with that diatribe. But if you aren't aware of what the Vatican does and how the fake crown of Europe are one and the same that subjugates the earth to that bull, and you don't know about, the so-called Gregorian and the Julian calendar, what about not worrying about time at all? The fact that we didn't have a focus on time, we knew about time of what may happen. That was what was written by the oracles and those who could see. These people have utilized it to deem it as a necessity upon you. And that indoctrination, don't get late to work, you'll be punished. Everything here is weaponized. Don't arrive too early, something could happen. Or maybe you might arrive too early because you forgot the number. You want to see if you're on the clock, and now you just wasted gas because money you might have overspent because of the drug problem, because of a certain group that made that. It could be 1,000 different ways. It's all about control. Everybody's under control and nobody has the rationale to reason it because nobody is stepping outside of the new world truth and allowing themselves to step out and be comfortable to step back into order. Because see, we have contradicted the reality without knowledge of order, and we've assumed that order is based on another form of control when order has no control over because everything was already laid from the foundation. So we have a conflict of interest because see, we're so indoctrinated. How do we relinquish all this stuff? I am reading to you to further go this furlough of lies we live so that we can step into a real place of R&R. And we could do it together. They went on in the hate truth smear campaign greasy. Yeah, I'm right. Yes, that's what they do. Round. Yeah, brother. I appreciate that, man. Hey, what's up, Grey Wolf? What's cracking, brother? R.L. Smith. You funny. Grand elevations, everybody. Well, no, I don't know. I'm going to say that. She's very wicked, but you got to remember now, what did I just do for you? I showed you her ignorance. We don't have to beat a person up. What do we gain from it? When you seek higher learning, that means the truth. The real truth. That doesn't need an explanation. What do we gain out of it? Are we still on that bandwagon of, hey guys, look what I said? We don't need to do that. It's unnecessary. When you started moving away from fictional feelings steeped on baseless emotions, and worthless emotions steeped on unfounded feelings, and you ascertain the reality, you realize that there's no need. It's like when certain individuals comment, and I look at the comment, I respond only because I find it funny. They're the fractured source. Even the AI is learning, so I can break its fake will, per se. See, when you start realizing this, what am I doing? What am I reading this for? Why am I reading this book, people? What are we dismissing? We're dismissing a lie, right? What are we making relevant? The reality that there's other things out there that are more informative. And what are we going to use? All the vices and tools. What does it say on the book? What does it say on my, on my, the description? What does it say? It's another form of what about history, right? Another individual, Orson Welles. George Orwell, George Orwell. Roman and Tartarian, very much so. But we don't have to put everything in them in lieu. They have rewritten the world with a broad fake history to dismiss Tartarian. And even that name itself is elusive. I shared another name for it, but we're going to stay with Tartaria because all the idiots who would, not y'all, but the ones who are doing channels, they haven't even found the real name. I'm sitting there going, wow, okay. Well, it's teaching any and everyone, hun. Yes. I did a thing on land patents. I did something on that. Go and watch the video. It would assist me anyway. I'm not going to talk about that here. Anyway, it was used as a weapon. And it's still a weapon. What the fuck? We don't own shit. We belong to it. It's that simple. Respectfully, brother. Yeah, I know we did learn it. Well, they made us learn it. But remember what I was stating about what we do, like grandbabies and our sons and daughters now? We don't have to be intrepid with all that foolishness. Let them get their degrees in the right direction, but make sure that they know the truth, that they don't have to speak. The brain is a sponge. We can open other hemispheres. It is up to us. Not to be dormant, laying asleep in the one side that we're on. We must cross rivers. We must mix streams. How they say that in Ghostbusters? Cross the quantum, and let's get this big ass ghost. We got to capture our own ghost, our spirit. We must entice it and feed it so that way it can arise to the occasion, people. We are spiritual beings. We are sentient. We are not physical. We have been deemed to a lower status, accepting physical as the dichotomy in the perversion to which you exist in. We're doing something here. Let's be responsibly respectful. There's no more laughing at ha ha ha. This is very serious. Now I expect you to take it very serious. And y'all too. Does this look like I do comical shit? I did 3 years of stand-up comedy. This is not what this is about, baby. Let's make sure that we have some clarity here. Let's all be on point, beloveds. You see what I'm saying? Yesterday I ordered $150 worth of books. I didn't get to what number I wanted. Guys don't want to donate $2 or $5 so I can get this 2 expensive books. I appreciate your donations. I didn't get the pen so that way I could start earning from the monetization, because when that happens, I'm gonna remove the Cashapp. And don't try to hire, please. Thank you but don't do that yet. Wait until I've already shared. You just pay into it for the when I start doing that, the numbers have to increase, and I have to like some of other people's pages out there, Warrior Poet Society and all that. And then we will start really getting greasy. So what it's going to is help me build a platform. All right. That's what the funds are going to go to. And that's how I'm going to use them. If I wanted to get rich, I'd just call my daughter. I need, could you throw me, $1.5 million? Yeah, Dad, I've been trying to do that forever. No. So stop being people. Giggling means you're uncomfortable with something, hon. That's the doctor in me. Okay? What's up? What's cracking? No, I love you. So we don't need that when I'm being dead ass serious. And you should know when I'm being serious. You of all people. You can be very informative to the rest of the people here. How about being my right and my left? How about that, hon? I appreciate everybody coming in and taking the time. I felt when I skimmed through that book and I was like, whew, I could just debunk the whole damn book. I realized there was a lot of information in there. That's why the purpose I purchased it was not just the word of Afrocentrism, but I wanted to get rid of it and this whole dynamic, because when I was in college, I took a class and I remember that dreadlock brother and I'm standing there looking at him. I was like, what is this garbage you teaching? And I actually changed my classes. I didn't even make it the first 3 months. The second week, I was like, oh man, this is foolish. I'm looking at all these fake natives and pale skins, and I'm like, foreigners. Oh, I'm out. And he would see me at the gym and everything. And I'm like, what you doing? He's like, what do you mean? I says, you're younger than me, but what are you teaching crap? What do you mean? And so I started giving him libations and telling him. And I said, but you know what? You're going to do what you're going to do. All right, because I can see your defense mechanisms, how you looking, how you feeling. And he's cool because he's seeing I'm pushing 315 on the bench and I'm sitting there saying, yeah, with the little grades. And then I'm going from there right into my fencing class. And everybody's wondering, how's this old guy doing backflips and beating everybody fencing? Well, you know Johanna Wright, Rep. Lord, you know my aunt, one of the heads of board of education, she retired. You know the sister she taught, who became one of the Olympic fencers, right? The things that I have done in my life that I've allowed a lot of other people to follow suit and do because of what I believed in, what I challenged, and what I ran forward in. Yes, married to Lonnie Ray, Denver Broncos, right? Passed away 12 years ago. Jazz. You know, me and Lauren Hill used to take care of my cousin Jazz. I used to be hitting on Lauren, fighting with the other knuckleheads and the Oranges. I grew up and I was afforded many things. I think they wanted to sucker me in because they know the truth of my family's lineage. Y'all don't have a clue. I want to be able to change your minds and help you shape your minds in a way that's away from the lies we live in. I would like to see you look at things differently. Instead of being so, a lot of times I post stuff now is to test to see what happens. I want to see you guys accrue something in yourself. More love of self. Now I ain't talking about with lotion. I'm talking about, and electric devices that are killing our women, making them sterile. I'm talking about a love that is beyond the scope of what we see. How many of y'all felt like you want to black out, and right when you did, you started seeing spots and dots? Are you aware that you can see that while you're awake? By meditation and breathing? Just by sitting and going, with clearness. And then find that tune in your ear that you think is in your ear, is in the middle of your head, it's by your pineal. It's between the sac, that balance of magnetism. It is a frequency that you have not attuned to, and to embrace and love it until you get to the point where it's perfectly sound and match. It's healing. It's self-healing. And then you can walk and look into the sky and you'll see those same spots. And what are you seeing? You're seeing the universe that you are. You probably see the veins on your eyelids. You'll see deeper than you ever seen. That's what I strive for every time when I'm meditating. I don't care if I meditate for 2 minutes or half an hour or an hour. I know what I'm talking about. But imagine if you were all doing it. Our women, no matter where you are, can chant and repeat over and over. If y'all were to come together with one subject and one specification, and us brothers communicate the same response if in lieu of we remove our ignorance. It matters not what color you think you are. Some people I know who are still convicted in hate will sit there in their ignorance. When I say no, I don't care what you call yourself. We're all family. Until we come back around, there's only one way to make things happen and change things. Because everything out here affects everyone. Now, some people might think that they're safe. GMO food affects every last one of us. All that meat y'all eat, talking about meat taters, pale skins, that's why you're so jacked up so early and later on. Well, a lot of us 11 to 80, 90. No, those are the ones who are getting heart and lung and liver and kidney transplants. Now, the other ones, you better go and talk to them. It's because they had a love for something. Now, I know many World War II vets that died 56 years old. Nah, man, thousands. I've looked at it. And I looked at the ones who lived longer, and I've actually sat there and I used to help clean one guy's house who fought in World War II, who had paintings. I was like, bro, something ain't right. And I think the guy was gay because me and my boy who went in the army, we used to be over there cleaning his yard and going to his house. He used to make us little, beef bologna and cheese sandwiches. Well, he allowed us to make it and everything and drink tea, and we clean the yard. And it was every weekend making a couple $100 across from the bank. And he was 90 years old, but he loved himself. He didn't have no partner. He didn't have no partner. He was in love with somebody in Germany when he fought in the war. And when he came back, because the person couldn't come back, he was never with another man. He lived his life. He had babies. Now I can't go into all that. He had babies. He was a woman. He belonged to a church. But he loved himself. And he shared information with me and my boy. I was like, and my boy was from California with his Jerry curl. You know what I'm talking about, Rep. He went to the army, and I think he retired from the army, a good brother of ours. And he was a tall guy, brother. He'd be doing that pop and locking and everything. We'd be doing windmills, and we'd be ticking and stuff, and doing our thing. But, yeah, you know what I mean? What was that? He lived a long time. I think he was in his 70s when I last saw him. I heard last he was alive. Well, not now. He's gone. I think he was past. He was like 90 something. But everybody else had heart and all these other transplants. And where do you think they were getting them from? You remember the little the little dynasty of police pitting and killing people and shooting people, and the EMTs being right there at the same time. You remember that was getting real good news, and all of a sudden it kind of stopped. They were out there, hit squads, killing certain brothers who had certain markers, and they were looking at the driver's license. Oh, and they're like, yeah, that's the match. That's what we need. Remember that was happening? For about a couple of decades, at least known to a lot of us. And they was murdering people to get their kidneys and millions of dollars to get a lot of things done, sadly, in this sick world we live in, with costume characters. But anyway, so I'm gonna go off and I'm gonna make something to eat. It's 11:34. Well, I'm gonna get something ready because I'm gonna eat around about 1:30, 2 o'clock. And while I'm eating, I'm gonna come back on and read the other books. I don't care. I'm gonna sit there and eat 10 minutes, and or I might just make a shake today. I don't know. I don't really want nothing heavy. And we're gonna read 1, 2, 3, 4. I got them lined up right here, all in sync. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books. Because these are the most wonderful right now. They all go together. They don't go together. They go together historically. Pieces of a puzzle. So I appreciate everybody coming in. To my beloved sisters, I always tip my hat to you on my hat. My brothers, you already know. Straight on. Nothing but love. Nothing but love. Who's that? Yes, on code, definitely, brother. Dying in the 60s, I'm an elderly. Yes, I know. And and we what they always show? The ones who aren't. Now with our people, they never show those of our people. Right now, the oldest person who lived in America was a sister. You know how old she was, right? She was 120? What was her name? Right? In Georgia, Louisiana, something like that. But they wanted to hide that. Just like they want to hide the fact that our children have the highest IQs. The firstborn. Not bragging. I'm just pointing out a fact that I learned while I was in college. That I was like this. What was my mama trying to kill me for? And then I started thinking about that biblical text, the firstborn. Was it taken out of context? Was there something in there? Was a spell to cast to make sure that the firstborn was dead because of what may be relevant to what may come from the firstborn? That in these hospitals and everywhere, they must murder us. That's why I keep telling y'all, stop getting these shots, especially if you're the firstborn. But everybody and women, you have to listen to me, please. I'm not telling you some myth. I'm telling you what you're capable of. And other women, like banshees, will hear you. And they instinctively will listen to me. You know, Susanna Jones, that's her. Yes, yes. Bama. That, I was kind of off there, wasn't I? Yes, yes, yes. Anyway, I know one thing, y'all. Hold on. Hold on. Where is it at? Hold on. I'm going to go up here because I know. Hold on. Yeah, that post, I got to take. I know, right, Bernard? Tell it. Yeah, I got to take that post down, y'all. Oh, on this device, it won't let it come. It won't. Oh, hold on. Because I put it up there because I thought it was kind of funny, but it's sad at the same time, but it's disgusting. I got to remove that, man. This tablet, even though I got updates and stuff, it's not good. Let me see where the content dashboard. Yeah, he's about to deactivate and go to Mars. I wouldn't doubt that, Rep. I was reading that other one on Mike Tyson. I believe that they're about to give him the way out because he's earned it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just stating that. I don't know if it's true. That's something else I wanted to talk about later on down the road. Where's my post at, dude? I believe it's very, very possible, man. I mean, that sucks to say that, man, because I like the brother. I actually know. I remember him from back in the day. You dig what I'm saying? Anything is possible, man. Anything is possible. I really believe that. Right? They about to bow him out. They about to let him slide. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. Where is it at? I don't know. It might not be on this one. I know on my phone I could do it. Oh, let me go back to dashboard. But I'm gonna get ready to sign off, guys. I was just looking for something because I'll get rid of my phone because that's all I do. But he, I mean, you got to remember that history. I mean, history is a lie commonly agreed upon, and a lot of Pelskins are caught up in that lie, and it's sad. A lot of people, and as I stated before, we're the only ones who are going to be able to change it. I'm actually aware now. A friend of mine told me that reason why my stuff's not getting out there and I'm getting the views though is because it's YouTube doing it. It's sad that people that weak. It is. It's sad that people are that afraid of something they know nothing about. And when you give people a warning, it's not a warning shot to not mess in a certain place or with a certain individual. They forego it because of indoctrination, because they don't know no better. Does it mean that it's going to be all right? No, the warning is to let them know, you don't do this. You would think that they would know better, but we look at each other, right? And what do? We do this as if we know what we're looking at or who we're looking at. That's not making a big eye. I'm just saying there's a reality. And if you can read behind the code, then you know. We assume too much. And that's indicative to the position that we always end up in a very bad one. Somebody assumed that we'd be all right, knowing the reality of it, but assumed as if it would be all, and that's not the case. Too many people have suffered from more pain than enough. They have occurred in not in increments, in the highest terrible way, some of the most worst pain and suffrage. Well, now it's to know that you don't have to have suffrage and pain, that you don't have to forego and give up, that there is another way to deal with things. And it's up to you. It's up to you. It's up to all of you. You dig? Hey, Equator 7, what's cracking? B-Tree. We're never late, brother. Never utilize time. It'll always be up. You can go back and watch it. I'm about to sign off because I'm over an hour and a half. I actually have some videos that are only like 12 or 13 minutes. I'm going to start uploading them bad boys. So y'all be like, damn, it's Jay. I'm not a glutton. I just love y'all. I want to see. I know that something's going to happen. I just know it. I know something. So I want to be all in. That's all it is. And I could be, like some people are telling me, good people, you don't have to do it that long, you know. And then they go, but we know what you do. So I'm going to keep, but I'm going to upload some of them videos, all right? Whenever you see that green light on, somebody's tracking you or they're recording you. If it's red, it's the same thing. It's pretty sad. And all my stuff is turned off. So that shows you who it is. That's just for awareness, all right? So anyway, again, I've already said my kudos. I appreciate those coming in. What's that? Why the pale faces are not dying? Oh, you see that on regular, don't you? Excuse me. Don't you, Rep? 116. I thought she was like, she was 116. I thought it was 120. So, okay, I was wrong. Well, on this date and time. Okay, I appreciate that, hon. 116, y'all. I think there was somebody in China supposed to be over 200, but they couldn't confirm. But then they found some documents showing that, and it was the diet that caught me the most. And that's why I say people need to pay attention to these. Oh, I love you, Rep. You already know I love you. So, Mama Red, jump in my pocket. Come on, girl. Jump in my pockets. I got y'all. Come on. I got y'all. I'm going to sign off, all right? I appreciate everybody coming in. Y'all share this. Mad love and mad respect, you know. We got a lot. I need to go and take that post down. I can't stand it. I just saw some more comments. I can't stand even the thing being on my platform. That's just some ugly stuff. They have lost their minds, y'all. But anyway, mad love and respect.